26. We are against the government or its agents reading our minds, interpreting our thoughts, or regulating them. In other words, we are against the thought police. And we have more and more of this surfacing. For instance, somebody will say something and I hear somebody, one of our representatives, getting up and saying, now what this guy said is code for this. It means he hates yellow people or brown people or red people or whatever, or he hates government, or he hates this, and this cannot stand. Okay, it's code. So, in other words, what we have developing here is thought police, telling us that if they say that if they can't find anything wrong in what I'm saying, for instance, if some word I said is code, that means that anything I say can be interpreted any way somebody wants if we give them authority to interpret what code means. So this is kind of crazy when you think of it. It's something we shouldn't even really have to talk about. But unfortunately, we do have to talk about it. I'd advise everybody here to read the book 1984, because it really brings home the idea that thought police can surface and how powerful they could be. And we've progressed a lot farther along the route to having a big brother thought police than we were when the book was written. This we want to avoid at all costs. 27. It is not the government's job to tell us the right thing to do. Morality is a personal decision. The only morality which is the concern of government is the encouraging of the obeying of the law. You know, it used to be the Republicans were accused a lot of being the moralists. But now both sides are jumping in there like crazy. I don't know how many times the past year I've heard Democrats get up and tell me what Jesus would do. And they didn't used to do that. It used to be mainly Republicans told us what Jesus would do. Now the Democrats are taking over Jesus. And so it's not right for either side to get in and tell us what Jesus would do, or Mohammed, or anybody else. It's not their job. Their job is to make laws and to make sure that the laws are enforced, not to tell us what is right and wrong. When you think about it, isn't the idea of having a politician telling you what Jesus would do the most craziest thing you ever heard of? It's crazy talk, right? They're the last people who should be telling us what Jesus would do. "28. It is not the government's job to define what we can and cannot say, or what is politically correct. The people will decide what we want to say and speak as we will." This political correctness has really gotten out of hand. I mean, it's all right to a degree, and the funny thing about authorities is we go from one extreme or the other. You know, back a little over a generation ago, we had the other extreme where we insulted other races like crazy. We insulted people that weren't like us, and it was considered okay. I remember when I was a kid, we kept telling jokes about Polacks, Polish people, and we didn't think a thing about it being politically incorrect or hurting a Polish person's feelings. But now we go the other extreme. Now you just can't say anything without offending somebody. So the trouble is we are extremists. We go from one extreme to the other. We could just be as abusive as we wanted a generation ago, and now all of a sudden we can't offend anybody. We have to step on eggshells wherever we go, And so we've gone from one extreme to the other. Let's kind of find a balance in the middle somewhere where we can get up and say a kind of an outrageous joke and people can laugh at it instead of suing us the next day. 29. We the people do not want our children forcefully drafted into a civilian work corps where they may be susceptible or forced into indoctrination. Now, this sounds kind of odd to some people who haven't looked into it. Yet it goes very closely with the next one, number 30. Let me read this. President Obama said, and this is a quote, "We cannot continue to rely on our military in order to achieve national security objectives we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, and just as well funded. We the people do not want a civilian national security force of such power that could become a nightmare to citizens if controlled by bureaucrats of destructive intent." In other words, a security force that's as powerful as a military is outrageous when you think about it. Fortunately, he said this before he was elected. Fortunately, since he's been elected, he hasn't said anything else about it, but it's probably on the back burner of his mind. But we spend trillions of dollars now on the military. We cannot afford additional trillions for an equivalent force for what? What, to control people that are politically incorrect? What will this security force be for? That would be, it sounds like it would be in addition to the police force. I wish somebody would ask him about this, because he needs to clarify whether he really plans on doing this. This is something that the majority is definitely not supportive of. Matter of fact, the majority don't even know about it. 31. Again, continuing the problems of the big government versus the majority. The state cannot confiscate private property for the purpose of increasing a tax base or for the benefit of a private business. This power of eminent domain must be restricted to public purposes, as has been the traditional case. Now, public domain does have a purpose. If we're building a highway and it goes through some guy's farm or whatever, then in the interest of the general public, we the people or the government needs to purchase that at a fair price so the road can go through there. But now the government has stretched the boundaries here a little bit, and different cities have confiscated people's property for the purpose of building malls or maybe some large business decides they want it, and they use their influence to force the government to use eminent domain to get the property they want. This is a terrible use of such thing. And even when they had this one of these cases went to the Supreme Court, I was surprised to find out that even liberal justices like Ruth Bader Ginsburg voted in approval of such type of seizures. So you would think the liberal justices would have been the ones most adamantly against this, but they weren't. Now we get to the people versus Congress and the government. These will be areas where the people, the majority of the people, are against what Congress and the government is basically doing. 32. Any bill passed by Congress must be limited to 100 pages or 30,000 words. It kind of used to be that way. Matter of fact, our whole Constitution can be put on about a dozen pages. Imagine that. About a dozen pages contains a document There was a foundation to our whole country and that changed the world. Yet, for instance, our health care bill was, 2,700 pages? And now this last finance bill is over 2,000 pages. And the past half a dozen major bills that we have been passed have been, around 2,000 pages. This is absolutely ridiculous. Why do they put so many words in there? Does it take that many words to say, to define how healthcare reform is going to be initiated? I think I could put it in about 10 pages if I was to write a healthcare bill myself, and may have to really think a lot to be able to create 10 pages worth. But why do they write so many words? The reason is that when we put people in power, they always want to not decrease their power, but they want to increase their power. And what better way to make sure their power is stable than to cover every possible base between the American people and the government. So if it comes down to what is legal, does it fall on the side of the American people, or does it fall on the side of big government? The reason we have 2,000 plus page bills is because they want to make sure the law always falls on the side of big government. So they write all kinds of extra details and explanations in there so that big government always has the power on their side. And the terrible thing about this is nobody ever reads these. No one ever reads the whole bill. Nancy Pelosi said we have to pass this health care bill to find out what's in it. Now with this financial bill, I believe it was Dick Durbin, or one of the representatives, said we have to pass this bill to find out how it works. So one bill, we have to pass it to find out what's in it. Another bill, we have to pass it to find out how it works. Well, we pretty much know how a 2,000 plus page bill will work, and that is, it won't work very good. And we, the people, don't even have to read it to know pretty much what's in it, and what's in it is not what the majority usually wants. When has a 2,000 page bill ever been passed that the majority says, oh boy, this is really great, this is wonderful? And so we're going to continue this. We've just started about the majority versus Congress, and we'll continue this on the next round. Thank you.